Live audio test. Check, check. Granicus live test. Check, check.
Do you hold it till Yeah, you just turned it off.
Yeah. Why don't leave it on now, do that?
Well, no, but they're just usually on.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, you have to go through this every time you want to talk.
T-minus 10 seconds.
Clock's a little bit slow, by the way.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
I feel like it's closer than it was a couple months ago.
It's getting there.
Yeah.
It says
To order a regular meeting of the Harbor Commission, could I have a roll call, please?
Yes, you may. Commissioner Abelman.
Here.
Commissioner Falk.
Here.
Commissioner Callahan.
Here.
Commissioner Carlson.
Here.
And Chair Curzon.
Here.
For the record, Commissioner Bauer and Commissioner Kilroy are not here, but we do have a quorum and we can conduct business.
Could I have Commissioner Callahan lead us in saluting the flag, please?
Certainly. If you please stand, hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Can I have an approval for the order of agenda? Any changes or motion to approve?
Motion to, second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Are there any blue folder items?
We don't technically, we did get an email from Mark Hansen at about 6 PM. It was a little too late to include as a blue folder item, but we will include it in the backup for tomorrow.
Okay.
It was about discussion item, give me a second, L2, the various subcommittees that we'll be speaking about.
Okay, thank you. The consent calendar, item F1, approval of the affidavit of posting for the Harbor Commission meeting of May 13th, 2024, and approval of F2, approval of the following minutes for April 8, 2024. Are there any changes to the consent calendar or the minutes?
Motion to approve?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. There are no excluded consent calendar items. And moving on to public participation of non-agenda items. If there's anyone from the public here or online that would like to speak on non-agenda items, now is the time. Please come forward.
Mike Martin, District 1. This feels like Groundhog Day. So I'm going to keep it short because otherwise my comments will be the same as they always have been. As far as the continued violation of the Coastal Commission agreement on the Portofino slips, this body in September moved to have that added to the agenda. I've been here several times. This is the latest promised date, this meeting. It's not on the agenda. So all my previous comments still stand. I'm not going to bore you with it anymore, but it'd be nice if someday that could be resolved. And
There has been movement.
I hear rumors of movement, whatever that means, but we're entering the fifth, so it's been 4 years. We're entering the fifth nice sailing season in which the slips and the little boats are being totally unused. And talk about harbor dependent or coastal dependent visitor serving, that's it. Talk about, opportunities for low-cost public sailing, that's it. But the boats are just sitting there rotting, the slips are unused. It's a valuable asset. City never had any right to it. And community services had no right to dictate terms on that. It's a Coastal Commission agreement, that's your purview. It's a Portofino lease, that's your purview. The terms are in the lease, and the lease is not being enforced. You don't need community services to give you permission on that. And I'll tell you an old story. back when I was working. Once upon a time, a new program manager was coming on board, and as he's going in the door, the old one is coming out. So he asked the old one for advice, and the old one said, tell you what, here's 3 envelopes. Every time you have a crisis that you can't resolve, open an envelope. So, the new guy's on board for about 6 months, okay? And he hit a crisis, he couldn't do it. So he opens the first envelope, says, blame your predecessor. That worked really well, classic. And about a year later, though, he got into another crunch, and he opened the second envelope. And inside it, it said, blame the customers. Or in this case, I guess we would blame the residents. So fine, that worked for a long, long time. He hits the third crisis, he opens the envelope and reads it, and what it says is prepare 3 envelopes. So here we are with community services. I'm hoping not to have to cycle through a bunch more envelopes on something that's really not their concern.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
And I could answer any questions that anybody has, but really, we've been through this a million times.
Thank you.
I could provide a brief update if you guys are all
We'd
wondering.
love to have the brief update.
So community service is taking this on because they actually run the program. And ultimately, they're getting into contract with somebody. We read the lease agreement that does stipulate the rules and requirements, and it does require the Coastal Commission to chime in on who the selection is. As of the last time we spoke about this, a submittal package was being prepared to submit to the Coastal Commission for their review of this chosen finalist, and with their approval, per se, we could get into contract, go to city council and actually get into a formal contract with them. I have seen that submittal be submitted, and now we're just waiting for Coastal Commission feedback. So progress is being made.
It is government.
It is government. Well said.
Thanks for that.
Thank
input.
you for the update.
No problem.
Are there any other comments on non-agenda items?
We have no other comments.
Okay. We do have a public hearing. Are there any ex parte communications on the public hearing to announce?
No.
No?
Nope.
Okay. Public hearing, item J1, we have a public hearing to consider an exemption declaration and coastal development permit to allow the construction of a public art installation called Gate Wave on property located within a coastal commercial CC4 zone in the coastal zone, and procedures. So we'll open the public hearing and take testimony, and then we'll continue the public hearing to a future Harbor Commission meeting.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we're actually not ready to talk about this so much yet. If you remember, in February, we did a public hearing notice. We advertised that we were going to talk about it. Turns out that there was still some needed contract work to work out with the artist. We thought that by setting a specific date, this meeting specifically, that would give us 3 months to get in that contract, get some of the submittal requirements submitted, a site plan, some other various requirements to get a review by you ready. But within that 3 months, while we were trying to do that, our engineering division recognized that there were some easements in the area. So we had to actually pull in LA County to chime in and make sure that the location was appropriate. It's looking good, it's just we're still working through that. Once we get LA County's blessing that it would be okay to place this art sculpture at this location, then we'll get in contract with the artist. There's 2 options we can do tonight. I do have a recommendation for you. We could pick a specific date to come back on and talk about this. That would be one way, and we would be forced to come back at whatever chosen date that is. That would save staff the time and the commitment to doing a public hearing notice again. But I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would simply say, let's go ahead and push this to a date uncertain and place it on staff that when it is ready, we'll renotice and kind of take that time to renotice. My fear is, because we did this in February, we did the public hearing notice, then at a meeting, we placed it on this meeting, right? And then if we picked another meeting after this date, someone would have to have seen the first public hearing notice, shown up to the meeting, recognized that it was coming to this one, and then been here for this one. It gets a little confusing. I'd rather just re-notice when we're ready, if that makes sense.
What are the easements?
They are sewer easements, I believe.
So they won't be affected by this at all?
It's about weight. I think something can go there. It's just a matter of the specs of the sculpture itself. It may, if there's an issue, it's not that it can't locate there, it just may need to scale down in size a bit.
So who covers the cost of this determination?
Everything's borne by the city. This is a city initiated project. Any other
Okay.
questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, because I'm new, is there a design that's already been approved and the
Correct.
artist has been chosen?
So there's a concept that was approved by city council. The location was approved by city council, but now we have to get into the specs of how it's actually going to be constructed, which requires permits. But because we're so close to the coast, it does require a coastal development permit to be reviewed by this body.
So we would talk about all that when it comes up.
Correct.
Okay.
Will we have the artist here at that time?
Yes, we will.
Okay, good. I'm all for leaving it in limbo.
Okay, with the public hearing open, if there are any comments from the public on item J1, we can take those now.
Good evening, Commissioner, staff. Mark Hansen, King Harbor boater. As I took a look at this item, something jumped off the page at me, which is, and I rushed a note over to you guys, but you probably haven't even seen it yet, so tomorrow you can see it. I wanted to suggest that you consider adding whatever costs would be necessary to make this artwork easy to relocate if we decided we wanted to relocate it. And the reason that jumped to my brain is that sometime back over the years, we have discussed the idea of realigning Redondo to line up with Yacht Club Way, which just about the whole world loves the idea. It would create a wonderful, safe four-corner intersection there instead of the bit of a mess that we currently have. King Harbor Marina, way back when, had their landscape architects draw a depiction of that. And if you can imagine it as you sit here, that creates a new triangle between the new Redondo that would be aligned to the south to Yacht Club Way and the old Redondo and Harbor Drive. In that triangle, King Harbor Marina drew in a concept for 72 more parking places. But it, boy, hit me like a ton of bricks when I read this item that, wow, would we, if that idea came to pass, would we want to potentially have the artwork there? It would seem like a much more prominent location for everybody who comes down 190th and Redondo to the harbor to have this thing right there as opposed to set back inside of the welcome park. So at any rate, that's my one little tidbit to put into consideration as you guys move forward, is that maybe we want to make sure that whatever construction method is used makes it easy to locate in case all these wonderful things happen over at AES. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Do we have a life expectancy on the specs on the piece of art?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, when we review this, the art, the architect, the design team, the artist will all be here to kind of answer those kind of questions. I mean, it seems like it's built to last, but
Nothing's forever.
Nothing's forever.
Especially down by the water. Thank you.
Sure.
Are there any other public comments on J1?
No other public comments.
Okay, I'd like to close the public hearing on item J1 and open a public hearing for item J2, consideration of a categorical exemption.
I think you need to do a
Sorry,
motion.
yes.
Motion to close the meeting.
Motion to close the meeting for item J1.
And then take a
The
vote
hearing, public hearing.
to
Hearing, yeah.
push it.
Yes, thank you. A motion to close the hearing for item J1 and, or is there a motion? I can't do it.
Motion to close the hearing on item J1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. And do we have a motion to continue the public hearing to a future Harbor Commission meeting?
I move to continue to J2. Isn't that what we're on?
No, you need to make,
J1.
Oh, J1 still?
someone needs to make a
Someone needs
motion
to make
to
it, 'cause I
direct
can't.
staff.
Yeah, I move.
Oh, yeah, to do that.
You want to do that?
Sure, so motion to direct staff to come back to us at a date to be determined.
Yes.
Second.
We'll get there.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, moving on to item J2, I'd like to open a public hearing for consideration of a categorical exemption from the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, and Coastal Development Permit to prohibit overnight parking in city parking lot 13 at the corner of North Harbor Drive and Yacht Club Way.
Thank you. This one we are ready to talk about tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to our planning manager, Sean Scully, who will introduce the project, and Lena Carrillo as well.
Thank you, Waterfront Economic Development Director, members of the Harbor Commission, Sean Scully, Planning Manager. Tonight, we have Lena Carrillo here to present this item for you. This went to the city council recently. We had discussions about an adjacent area of Redondo Avenue where we just initiated some parking regulations for overnight prohibitions. This is a follow-up item or a companion item that is the discretion of this body, not the city council. So with that, we'll have Lena walk you through the details. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Sean. Yes, members of the Harbor Commission, I'm Lena Carrillo. I'm the Senior Management Analyst with the Redondo Beach Police Department. I'll give a very brief presentation and then turn it over to the Commission for discussion. The item before you this evening is a public hearing to consider a CEQA exemption and a coastal development permit to prohibit overnight parking in City Parking Lot 13. Here's an aerial view of the subject site. Lot 13 is a city-operated public parking lot located at the corner of Harbor Drive and Yacht Club Way. It consists of 27 parking spaces, all of which are metered. Parking is allowed 24 hours a day as long as the parking meter is paid, either by payment at the meter or by having a parking meter permit sticker affixed to the vehicle. City council members have received numerous complaints from the public regarding vehicles parked in the lot for extended periods of time, typically vehicles having a parking meter permit sticker. After a meeting to discuss various options for restricting parking, City Council directed staff to begin the process of implementing an overnight parking restriction in the lot to enhance the turnover of the parking spaces. The Redondo Beach Municipal Code gives the city manager authority to restrict parking hours citywide by erecting appropriate signage notifying the public of the restriction. Therefore, in general, the city manager could have implemented the restriction in Lot 13 after council's direction. However, Lot 13 is located in the city's coastal zone, which is the area west of Pacific Coast Highway. Any action in the coastal zone must comply with Redondo's local coastal plan and be issued a coastal development permit after conducting a public hearing. Given that Lot 13, even though city-owned and operated, is not located in a public right-of-way, jurisdiction for considering the coastal development permit falls to the Harbor Commission. The purpose of the CDP is to ensure the action is in compliance with the city's local coastal plan. In this particular case, as it relates to public parking in the coastal zone, the action cannot reduce the number of public parking spaces and cannot have a negative effect on public access to the coastline. The draft resolution in your agenda packet tonight outlines findings as such. The total number of parking spaces in Lot 13 is not being reduced, and restricting overnight parking will enhance the turnover and vacancy rate of parking spaces, thereby promoting more access to the adjacent coastline. By requiring vehicles to vacate the parking spaces during the hours of least use, the city can ensure more availability of public parking spaces during the day when peak use occurs. The action is exempt from environmental review under CEQA, as there will be no expansion of the parking lot footprint and the installation of signage falls under the category of accessory structures, which are also exempt from environmental review. The draft resolution includes these findings as well. So the commission does have a couple of options. The municipal code offers a couple of options for restricting parking hours. Specifically, RBMC section 3-7.1310 restricts parking specifically between the hours of 2 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. Or RBMC section 3-7.1308 provides for the restriction of parking hours during various specified days and hours. This gives flexibility to the Harbor Commission to determine appropriate hours to restrict parking. The direction from City Council was to restrict overnight parking. Harbor Commission was given the discretion to choose which hours would be appropriate for the particular location. So in summary, staff recommendation is to open the public hearing, take testimony, deliberate and close the public hearing, and adopt a resolution by title only approving the CEQA exemption and coastal development permit, and further determining the specific hours for the overnight restriction. Should the commission adopt the resolution, there will be a 10-day appeal period to the City Council before the decision becomes final. Should no appeal be filed, the fully signed resolution will be forwarded to the California Coastal Commission. Once the Coastal Commission review is complete, at that point is when the restriction will be effective and signs could be installed. So although the action takes place tonight, the overnight restriction likely wouldn't be effective for about 6 to 8 weeks for that process. At that point, the police department would assume enforcement. So this concludes staff's presentation, and we now turn it over to the commission. Thank you.
I have a quick question. This asterisk, why doesn't the resolution have the hours? That is what we vote on today going to either, well, fill in the hours there, basically?
That's correct, yes.
I have a question. Wouldn't a third option be a time limit, like 4-hour parking only?
So council did discuss that at their meeting back in March. I believe the overall concern with a 4-hour time limit is that during the day, it could restrict the public, like at the beach. So it would give them like 4 hours, and then they'd either have to come back and move the car elsewhere. So they felt restricting just hours might be too prohibitive at
Manhattan
that
and Hermosa
location.
do that. 2-hour parking, 4-hour parking, they do that already.
Right.
And the other thing is, I actually think it's a great idea to have it closed during a certain period of time, because when else are you going to clean it up? If you have a street sweeper come in and clean up all the cups and the cigarette butts and trash that's left there, it's nice to have a time that's flexible for them. So I'm all in favor of this, is if we can figure out which option we like.
Yeah, I like that, that one of the recommendations you guys came back with was till 5:30, because I know the city council was talking about 6, and sunrise can be as early as 5:48, 5:45. Twilight as early as 5:17. And so we don't want to restrict people who like to get to the beach to those early hours, either to get in the water or just see the color. I guess those are my opening comments.
If people have to pay regardless of when they're there, then any restriction we do, and there's obviously people who park there overnight, which is why we're having this discussion, they're paying, correct, or no? These people are paying the meters at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
The majority of the vehicles parked overnight have the parking permit sticker affixed. So they've paid a flat rate for the year and are not necessarily
And they
feeding
just
the meter.
So you can just leave your car there indefinitely?
Correct.
These people,
Currently
okay.
correct, yes.
Okay.
That's the concern, yes.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's not good.
No, it's
Yeah.
not good. And during the summer, when they have junior lifeguard and the sailing program and all the other summer camps that are down there, it's a holding pattern for people to try and get in that parking lot to pick up their kids, because that's the little U thing. And it's horrible, because there's no place to park because there's people living there. Yeah.
But any restriction we do is going to have some sort of enforcement with it.
Exactly.
Which means we're going to have somebody who goes there at 3 o'clock in the morning to effectuate whatever we determine.
That's correct,
Otherwise, this
yes.
is just a
Yes, and that would
gutted-
be the police department. So the police department has the resources through
is.
our municipal services officers as well as our police officers to enforce parking really any time of day as well as but
Are they okay
overnight.
with this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys were heavily involved in that
Yes,
conversation.
yes. I think that's why we sort of led the charge on it, yes.
Roger?
What's the ultimate goal? Like just to have people gone from 2 to 4 or something? Like, is it to clean it? Is it so people aren't just living there?
I think it's for turnover, really. I mean,
Yeah.
Just to
Commissioner
make the
Cowan
spots
hit the point. If people just being there all the time, just kind of resets the parking lot, if you will.
So then essentially you only need, 2 or 3 hours. You don't need the whole night to be closed.
Well, that's why they're saying from 2 o'clock in the morning till 5:30 in the morning. That would keep people from camping permanently there.
I'm just trying to see if there's any like sort of loophole that somebody could think of to stay there. I mean, ultimately, someone could risk it and just hope that the cops don't show up and we'll get them to take it, but
Right, so if you had it super narrow, then the cops might not
yeah.
get there in time, so got to have a few hours, I think.
Sure,
other
a few
comments?
questions. What's done elsewhere in the neighborhood? Like the Esplanade is no parking overnight or no parking after sunset? Or Vets, the parking lot at Vets, what's the restriction there? Or is there any?
Isn't the Esplanade 9 o'clock at night?
Yes, there's no overnight parking at all on Esplanade after 9 PM. That's correct. So it's even earlier. Along Redondo Street, along a portion of Redondo Street, there is no parking between 2 AM to 6 AM
Okay.
as well. And then some of the meters have 4-hour parking restrictions in various areas of the city, not this close
Yeah.
to the water. I believe the Riviera Village, more so for the business turnover down there. But the main concern is, it's on the street as well, though. On the street, the police department can enforce the 72-hour parking rule. I mean, it's still 3 days, but at least, after 72 hours, the vehicle can be towed, versus this is not public right-of-way, right? It's
Okay. That was my next question,
Yes.
why the 3-day effect doesn't come in here.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Okay. Ryan, one of the reasons behind this is there are starting to be people living in vans on Redondo. Redondo just had its overnight parking change, so, this is the last spot in the area where that's going to wind up. The city has great homeless outreach. Do we do that for people in cars and vans? Or
Yes,
just in
yes,
tents?
we have
Okay.
a outreach coordinator that, she's out there working tirelessly.
Oh, I know.
So she tries her best.
Yeah, she's
yes.
great.
So,
I'm
yes.
really proud of what this city is doing there, but I just wasn't sure, if the bandwidth included, cars and vans in Redondo.
It does.
Okay.
It does, and she tries. Yes.
Okay, that's great. Where is there still 24-hour parking at a meter anywhere in the city? What I'm kind of scratching at is I'd like to be consistent. I mean, I kind of hate having a different
move
rule
them
on
from
every
one
sign, the way
ordinance.
downtown
wondering-
LA does.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, Harbor Drive, is that 6 AM or what are those meters?
No, so I believe, no, Harbor Drive technically would still be 24-hour parking as long as the meter is, is paid.
Okay.
But again, you have, your street sweeping turnover and your 72-hour turnover along the streets.
Okay, thanks. I guess no further questions other than, I'm sort of wondering if we should consider this on Harbor Drive as well, or if we're just, going to play whack-a-mole with this. If the city and the police department are okay with doing this, piece by piece.
Yeah, the immediate referral was for Redondo Street and lot 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just being closer to residents and so forth and more of a nuisance there. Okay.
The outreach, I speak very highly for them. Over at Dominguez Park, the entire parking lot was full, and now they're down to about 20% of the parking lot. So they've done a fabulous job over there.
And then Redondo, that's just going to be considered separately or another time?
Yeah, that was already decided upon. That was
Oh,
a
that
little
one
different.
didn't-
It didn't require a coastal development permit, so it didn't need to
Oh, okay.
go before you guys. It was a little further away from the coast, so it didn't qualify.
It actually did, but the location, it was under the jurisdiction of the city council.
There you go.
Well, and they also have,
Nuance there.
they also have two built-in stopgaps. One is the 72 hours.
Right.
And the other one is street sweeping.
Right.
You can't be there for that 3 or 4 hour period. So,
Yeah. Okay. Let's take public input on item J2. Are there anyone online that has comments on item J2?
Sorry about that. I'm struggling with my microphone over here. We have no comments online or on Zoom regarding the item.
Okay. And we didn't have any comments from the public that night in the city council on this either, did we? I guess for me, I'm just wondering 5:30 or 5 or, it's really the only question I have.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure if I need to raise my hand or anything, but I agree with you. I worry about people coming early to surf or fish. I mean, people surf and fish even in the dark,
Yeah.
around the break wall and so forth. There is still the parking inside the marina, which is a lot more expensive. It's several bucks an hour, and there's no parking pass for it. But the people who are, surfing and fishing, I typically see them walking from there because it's a shorter walk, even though there's the higher expense. So if you really wanted to park in that area and hit the beach or sand early, you could park in the marina or along Harbor Drive. So I'm thinking through this as well, and I like the 5:30 because of sunrise, but part of me also likes being consistent with Redondo and saying same as Redondo. So,
You said Redondo will be 5:30?
It'll be 2 a.m. to 6 a.m.
Oh,
on
that's
Redondo.
right. It's unfortunate. Any other comments on time?
6 a.m. that's not that early. I mean, that's
Yeah, it's late.
late.
Yeah. I used to regularly get on the water at 5:15. So I worry about people in that location. I think for visitors, 5:30 is probably fine. They're just getting there for the, sunrise is in 15
but
minutes.
there's other options
but
in the
other-
marina.
Yeah.
There's plenty of options. Obviously this is a problem and this is the way to fix it.
The marina one's not as obvious, though, that it's available, if you're an outsider. Actually, even if you live here, I didn't know about that lot for a long time.
Well, it wasn't available for a long time.
I have a boat there and I can't make the app work, so
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I like the 2 to 5:30 a.m. Sunrise is never before 5:30. And, if they have to come earlier, they can use the marina parking.
There was, I wanted to look at the paragraph. What is it, 3-713, the ordinance.
Yes, so there's two. There's 1308, which is prohibited various hours, so which gives the discretion to specify a different set of hours, or just the general all-night parking, which is the 1310, 2 a.m. to 5:30 a.m.
So where are we? We still have the public hearing open. Do we need to close that before we make a motion, or?
If you're ready to make a motion, then yes.
Okay.
Oh, I found it. So in 3-7.1310, it says You cannot park for any period longer than 30 minutes between 2 a.m. and 5:30. So if you showed up at 5:15, 5, you would be fine. So, yeah, I'm fine with 5:15, 5:30. The only other question I had, does it matter that in the ordinances here, it calls it all-night parking, and in the resolution it says overnight hours? Are those equivalent?
We could certainly update the resolution. I think more importantly is tying it to the hours.
Okay,
Sean, or,
It should be fine to have that,
okay.
slight difference in the language of the finding.
Okay. So if there are no other comments on item J2, I'd like to close the public hearing so that we can have any other deliberation and a motion.
Motion to close public hearing
Second.
on J2.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, my feeling is I like the 2 to 5:30 a.m.
I agree.
That allows for street sweeping, any kind of short maintenance that has to be taken care of, and to open it up for other people to use it.
Do we know if there's a company currently that is responsible for, like, who cleans it currently and when does that happen?
Doesn't Athens have the street sweeping contract in the city?
It's city operated.
I don't know.
that I don't know, because that's under Public Works.
I think
so
it's
I'm
Athens.
not-
I think
it's
I'm not
city.
certain on that.
Do you think it's city?
I-
thought it
well,
was
For
Athens.
parking lot?
The jurisdiction lies with the city, right? We're the owner, if you will. But whether it's a contract with Athens that comes in and just street sweeps, or I'm not sure.
I think they empty the trash cans and
Okay.
street sweep and do all that stuff.
That would make sense because that's our existing city contract to do the rest of the right-of-ways. Even though this isn't right-of-way, it's still our property, right?
Because I imagine they wouldn't want to just show up at, like, unless they're already coming at some 1 hour, some point within that hour
They work
range.
24 hours.
Yes, but I imagine they're not going to want to, like, come from wherever, like the Athens
They're in
hub
Redondo.
is.
They're in Redondo
And
24.
they're okay, okay.
They go down
If you know
Pacific
that,
Coast Highway at 3 o'clock in the morning doing the center of the street.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So long as they're okay adding this in without some undue cost to us for like some late charge or something.
Sure.
So shall I make the motion? I move that we fill in the asterisks with 2 a.m. to 5:30 a.m., 7 days a week.
And adopt the resolution?
And adopt the resolution.
Do we have to say the whole thing? Adopt the resolution by title only? Approving categorical exemption?
I think we're good.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Well, before we vote, I have a question. Is just saying the hours enough, or do we need to specifically point to the chapter in the regs?
No, the hours is
Okay,
fine.
thank you.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to, we have no items, item K, no items continued from previous agendas. Item L1, Police Department Quarterly Public Safety Report for Q1 2024 and Q2 2024.
So, hey, everybody. I'm not with the police department. If you remember, the fire department was nice enough to come at our last meeting and do a presentation for us on their quarterly stats. The police department didn't have the bandwidth at the time to do it. They were able to get us the stats this time, but unforeseen circumstances, the representative could not be here tonight. So you have the stats. You could direct staff to have PD come back next month
Yes.
to actually do the formal presentation. They don't mind doing that at all. The information's there for you. So I would suggest that we just,
Have it next month.
exactly.
That would be great.
You want to do it? Staff.
Yes, could I request that we direct staff to bring the police department back next month to report?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Do we have, I only have the agenda, the short agenda on my PC. I don't have the full
I know, I'm like jumping around
Stat.
too.
it was in the packet, but it's not here, and I'm just checking to see if anybody else has it, or if it
You
just,
mean the,
I'm like,
yeah. So the police stat is in the full, long packet.
Oh,
right.
it's in the long packet. I
Yeah.
didn't bring mine.
Okay, but usually it's on the screen.
Yes.
It's not.
Oh, no, it's not.
I've got access to
What
it
are you
right
looking
here.
for? I
And
have
I could
If
dribble
you
around on the
click
web.
through
I'm
it,
just,
yeah.
I'm just
I'm like
checking in.
clicking
So-
it, clicking down.
So that'll be next month.
Usually underneath.
Okay. Item L2, discussion and possible action to fill by appointment the various Harbor Commission subcommittees recently vacated by former Harbor Commissioner Jim Light upon his appointment to mayor.
Yeah, kind of good news, bad news. We've got these vacancies for good news. He was elevated to our new mayor, is doing a heck of a job, but left a void in some of our subcommittees. And I think now would be the time to talk it over amongst yourselves and to reassign those. In your staff report, I've got a list of 4 subcommittees that he was a part of. It is the dry boat storage, the Seaside Lagoon, the Sea Bass Subcommittee, and the waterfront education. In the staff report, I included who was involved currently, so you didn't double nominate yourself. But, you know, I'll add that the Sea Bass Subcommittee, you don't have to elect to refill that one. I think we're pretty much at the end of that one, but I included it because we're technically not done with it yet. We're getting into contract with somebody really soon, and once we're in contract, they're just going to implement over at the Fire Harbor Patrol, which is great, yeah. But I leave that up to you if you want to fill that, just to, you know, make sure we catch everything, that's up to you.
Tom's not here.
I'm here.
Matt is
Also not here.
up in a few months, but did either of them indicate interest, do you know?
No.
I have a question. How many do you generally,
3.
3?
Yeah, you can
Oh,
have, you can't have more than 3.
I did have a question. He was also on the, I think it was called Harbor Use Outreach.
Which one?
Harbor Use Outreach.
Harbor use?
I don't know what we called it. The outreach that we established in December.
You recalling that one?
There-
It was,
There was a subcommittee just to write a letter warning boaters
yeah,
that bad weather was
Oh,
coming.
that's right.
like
and-
what method we should do.
That's,
Jim that started out as a motion to write a letter. Jim expanded it to, let's create a boaters alert network. I brought that back in January, February, I forget. And we kind of tabled it to see how things would work out with the new city webpage.
and
And also if the South Bay Alerts thing would start working.
I can provide an update with that. I don't think the subcommittee's needed anymore with the appointment of Jim Light as the mayor. It's gotten some legs, and we've been directed by the city manager to do it. Dave Shirobi's actually taking a lead effort on it. We have a new communications team within City Hall. Can't spend too much time talking about this right now, but as a quick update, we're using that communications team to drill into how exactly to best implement this idea.
Wow.
Yeah.
That moved fast.
Okay.
So that leaves 3, and I don't have any, I'm familiar with all 3 of those things. If you want me to just take those 3, that would be fine with me.
Wow.
Good job.
Well, I do have one comment, though. The masked up dry boat storage, do you really mean masked up or just dry boat storage?
Yeah, I was going to add, Mark Hansen was kind enough to
Was what-
submit an
started
email
out.
around 6 PM. It didn't quite make it in time to reach your blue folder items, but, you know, it was just a title. We can call it, if you guys want to change the title right now, that's totally fine with
But
me.
the intent is not to limit it?
No, it's just,
Okay.
it's boat storage.
Yeah. I mean, if somebody else really wants on one of those, that's fine, but, you know, I want to do my share, so.
I'd like to do, since.
You weren't here when these were stood up, do you?
Yeah,
Well,
well,
do you have any interest?
Bill Brand was a good friend, and I know that he was big into the waterfront education. I'd like to do that one.
Okay.
Okay.
And if I may, I'd like to pick up white sea bass. I'm in a couple fishing clubs, and I know Clark, I know people working on that, so,
Yeah, we're almost done with that one.
yeah.
But there'll be more.
No, that'll be a good one.
I'm worried that we haven't, I'm worried that I'm going to be down here every month like Groundhog Day with 3 envelopes if we don't drive a stake through the heart of the zombie and actually put the pens in, so.
Yeah, and I think even though it's drawing to a close, it'll be good to have an active subcommittee so that even just during the procurement of materials, questions arise, we'll have a team that can kind of answer some questions.
I've talked to a lot of people about the pens recently, and I'm concerned the money's not going to go far enough.
Really?
We shouldn't have a white sea bass subcommittee meeting here, but we funded that a couple years ago. Can you go to Home Depot with money you funded a couple years ago?
True, yeah,
So,
we'll see.
Okay. You're welcome aboard.
thank you. Well,
So-
assuming we.
Yeah, so right now
we vote, yeah.
I've got Commissioner Abelman on waterfront education, Commissioner Carlson on white sea bass, and Commissioner Falk on Seaside Lagoon and dry boat storage.
Cool.
We'll have to take a vote, but those are my notes so far.
I move
Yeah, I
those,
think no more discussion, so.
I move those positions be filled as volunteered.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Awesome.
Thanks for stepping up. Okay, items from staff, M1 Director's Report.
Yeah, I have a couple updates for you guys this evening. Progress continues to be made on the boat launch project. We've kind of done an update every meeting. I don't want to get repetitive, but we're at a point now where we've got our selected finalist, which is great. We're going to start working through a contract. The timing's absolutely perfect because we're talking budget right now. And it is, as going to be proposed, accommodated for in the budget. So we're in good shape. We just need to wait for the budget to get passed and adopted, and then we'll get into contract with our chosen finalist. It's our chosen finalist, so we'll have to present this finalist to city council, and they'll have to take a vote on it to tell us, yes, get into contract with them. But that's the MO. So the budget will be heard in June. Hopefully in July, we'll be bringing the boat launch contract, and then we're off and running with design studies and design and all the fun stuff we've been talking about. The dredging project continues to progress. We had a couple delays, as you know, a couple weeks delayed just before Beach Life. There was another one-day delay. I think it was May 7th, a little technical glitch on the barge. They were able to get right back up and running on May 8th. They expect to be done the week of May 20th, just one of those days. So we're growing to a close. All good things. International Boardwalk Pavers, another $1 million plus project.
I'll wait.
Okay. $1 million plus project. Also, that was approved. We got into a contract with a chosen vendor. They are now procuring materials, and we will be starting implementation, construction boots on the ground after Labor Day. We're trying to avoid the busy International Boardwalk season. That's out of respect for the business owners that we've been talking to for a while about this. They won't ever close during this because pavers are situated in a way that you can just keep moving fences around, but just to limit the impact during their best season of the month, right? And we expect that construction process to take about 60 days. And then cat's out of the bag, but City Council on April 23rd voted to expand the purview of the Harbor Commission. It's unfortunate. It was a split vote, but ultimately they decided to keep everything the same as is between what's split between the Planning Commission and the Harbor Commission. They did direct staff to proceed with a text amendment that required any entitlement within that expanded area, excluding the 2 parks, but the expanded triangular area of the AES site all the way down to Pacific, that any entitlement go before the Harbor Commission first as a recommending body before ultimately being decided by the Planning Commission. So ultimate authority will still be with the Planning Commission, but they'll have to stop here first. It's very much like the language for our park system. The Planning Commission elsewhere in the city, not Moonstone Park, but any other park system outside of the harbor, the Planning Commission has ultimate control over it, but pursuant to Muni Code, it has to get in front of the Parks and Open Space Commission first as a recommendation. It'll follow that same suit. And that's my update for projects. I'll take questions in a bit, but we are scheduled for our next meeting to occur June 10th. We will have the proposed budget done and ready, or the final version before it goes to City Council for your review. City Manager Mike Wazansky and our Finance Director Wendy will be here to present that to you. And obviously we'll also have the police department there to do our stats. So let me know if you can't attend because we do need a quorum that night. And I'm here to field any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah.
On the boat launch, I was out last month, spring break. Did we get insight on the contender, or it sounds like we won't
No,
until after? Like,
it's still, we're still negotiating, so there's not too much we can talk about in a public setting.
right,
There's no subcommittee for this one. We do have a selection committee that consists of staff and some external people that were helping select the vendor. We had multiple applications. We had interviews with them after the fact. Obviously, there's bids as well to consider, right? So we're still negotiating. Can't really get into it.
okay. Dredging project, did we, how often and how was the feedback in ensuring they're doing all good things and they're depositing?
The environmental
dredged,
concerns and things like that.
yes.
There has been an environmental consultant that's been there.
Right.
As long as they've been there. I don't know exactly where they situate out on the site, if they're on the barge or what. But everything I've heard from our Public Works Department is that they're following all the proper rules and regulations and doing everything the right way.
Do they, it just seems like there should be some outbrief or some report that we can then share that informs the public, we did all the right
Yeah.
thing, like a summary from that.
There's usually, with all these
Consultant?
consultants that are really just there to make sure that we're doing the right environmental protocols, I'll liken it to an arborist, if you will. If there's a construction site and there's a tree that's supposed to be preserved, they're there every day that work is within 100 feet of that tree. And every day they come up with like a summary or a report about why they're in compliance and there were no issues. There's likely something like that involved here. I would just have to get with Public Works staff to get that.
Okay,
There's a reporting out mechanism to show that our Public Works team, that everything's being adhered to.
right. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions on the report? Roger?
So also on dredging, is there any, final inspection to say we're happy? I've heard that there's still sand in the south channel going to the south basin. I haven't seen it myself,
Right.
but I've heard from some of the bigger boat operators that it's not everything they could wish for.
I've heard similar things. I've heard from the dredging company that a lot of the sand is continuously moving for the next 30 days, 60 days.
They dug a deep enough hole that should
Right.
slide in.
It's going to settle and move things
Yeah.
around a little bit. So they're warning people not to judge right away and let things kind of settle a bit. But in terms of like a final inspection, if you will, our
Yeah.
Public Works project manager, there's one person that's kind of overseeing everything. That would be the final sign off. Here's your last check, good job type of a duty. We could get with her and maybe invite her back next meeting to give an update, or I can get a report from her that summarizes everything. I mean, it's up to you guys, really.
Well, it's theoretically done May 20th, so next meeting would be too late unless the barge breaks down
I
again.
could just get a report from her and send it to you too.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, as long as there's some final check and, we got good value for our money,
Right.
I'm not quite sure what else to do. I'm no expert. Somehow this sandbar was surveyed at the start of this. Is there a post-dredging survey?
I don't know.
I mean, it's sort of, it's kind of less important to me in the wider area. It's important to me near the north end, near the King Harbor docks, and it's really important to me in that south channel to make sure that we got good value there and the big boats can still make it through there.
I'm thinking that when the Army Corps of Engineers comes in to do the break wall, we will know more.
They won't look at that
definitive.
south channel, though.
Not in the South Channel, but the sandbar,
Sure.
because they won't be able to get close enough if it's not deep enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Obviously this dredging has been just long overdue, but technically it's a preamble to that work, and they were going to have to do this work if we didn't.
Yeah.
So when they go out there to actually fix the break wall and they have to dredge, we're going to know pretty quickly that we didn't do that great of a job, right? So I don't want to wait that long. I want to get you a report and some final information, but that's a good point. I mean, if we don't do this right, the Army Corps of Engineers is going to have to take that expense on.
Yeah. And a second question, when they're dredging, they're screening each load of material for big rocks. Where do those end up?
The big boulder rocks?
Yeah.
I don't know. I know the silt goes to that one deposit kind of
Yeah.
out of the harbor. I don't know about the rocks. I do know that when they were proposing, when our U.S. Army was here and at City Council, they said the worst thing you can do is set the rocks back up on the break wall because then they become projectiles. So they may be situating them closer to the wall underwater so that the U.S. Army can pick them up and then puzzle it together like they said they would. I'd imagine that would be beneficial so that they don't have to bring in so much material. But I don't know if it's worth it for the U.S. Army either. They may just leave them where they are.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
Okay. I think that's all I have on the director's report. Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
None for me.
Okay. Moving on to item N, commission items and referrals to staff. I guess I have a referral to staff to come back with the summary from the dredging of the consultant on the environmental, being good stewards as far as where we put our dredged material, especially with respect to the canyon and endangered species.
Do you want to add just kind of to Commissioner Carlson's point of getting kind of that overall summary too, not just the environmental aspects, but just the closing?
Yeah, because I guess we never knew what, there's some statement of work, right, and how dredged to this level plus or minus
Right.
something. Be good to have that summary.
Okay.
And then I've referred this a few times, but just especially now it's budget time, communicating with the Parks and Rec about getting some more bike racks from Yacht Club Way down to Seaside Lagoon. And I know they didn't approve us, increasing our purview to include Veterans Park, but I was there yesterday and was shocked that there's 2 bike racks in all of Veterans Park, which is insane.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Veterans Park's outside the purview of
Yeah,
of
that didn't
this,
get approved,
but I can report that we just recently got approved for 3 bike racks in or around the Moldee area, kind of where those standalone restaurants are being constructed, the California Surf Club and the new cantina that used to be Samba's.
okay.
3 racks are going in there. I think they procured them, they haven't installed them yet. And then we're working on getting some more, maybe towards Seaside Lagoon, and then a few over by International Boardwalk, just to kind of cover at least that area, that marina parking lot area for now.
Okay.
And we didn't need to go to the budget for that. They're not that expensive. We just found some money for it.
Well, that's what I said a year ago, and
I
I'm
know.
still not at that whole
Well, we were
It's
looking
the
at a
government.
moonstone.
comprehensive, let's get it all done at the same time. Now we're just going to piecemeal it a little bit.
I did wonder too, Beach Cities Health District, it seems like this is something they could pitch in. Like the senior center, there's 0 bike racks. I'm sure there are seniors that are biking to Veterans Park. I don't know. All right, that's my referral.
I have none. I won't be here next month.
Got your email, thank you.
Could you send a copy of that dredging report to me?
I'll just send it to everybody, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's it.
Roger?
I've got a few. I never know if these go under, questions for the
Yeah.
report or referrals to staff. Over the last couple months, we've talked about empty slips and unregistered boats or abandoned boats. Were you able to get any information on that from any of the marina leaseholders? I'm still interested in the count of empty slips.
Yeah.
The same way we're interested in the empty square footage in the area.
So, pursuant to the lease, we don't get involved with the renting out of the slips or anything like
Okay.
that. But what we do is say, hey, you need to maintain, you need to make sure they're registered. So I was able to talk to each of our slip operators, us being one of them, and make sure that they're aware that we're watching and that they need to get this under wraps. So when it comes to registration and things of that nature that we do have control over, we are enforcing that as much as we can. I haven't done it yet, but if it gets to that point, I'll send the police department to kind of enforce if we must.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the marinas are seeing registrations that are coming in from, some law office or estate or something. There's probably a lot of estates owning $500 sailboats out there now. But the boat's not actually getting used and registered.
Right.
So there's a piece of paper in the office, but there's still a boat out there sinking and taking up a space and,
Yeah.
Okay, it's unfortunate we can't know the count of empty slips.
They can do a quick analysis for us, but there's empty slips and then there's unused boats. And if they're paying their monthly slip fee and they're paying, it's tough to call it abandoned. It's really hard.
I certainly understand that, and I'm willing to pick the low fruit. I'm interested to know how many empty slips there are, just because I'd like to know, how well we're marketing our harbor, how well our harbor's doing. Let's see. Some of my questions are probably for the police report next month. Do you know if there's any fallout or aftermath from the diesel spill in the harbor?
I don't think there was any. Everything I've heard is that it was cleaned up and properly, mitigated. From what I've heard.
Okay.
Yeah.
No fines or fees or penalties or, don't do it again or?
No. And we reported it to all the environmental agencies and did what we had to do to make it known that we made.
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah.
Any comments on beach life so far, or will we hear anything about that?
I haven't heard anything about it. Obviously, there was some high winds that caused it to close about 3 hours early. I don't know what the outfall that's going to be between the producer and people who had tickets. It's kind of between them at this point. But takedown went smoothly last week, and we had some inspections done today with our public works crew just to make sure it was, when you have tractors and stuff out there, stuff gets broken and we make the producer liable to fix things. So we just want to make sure it's returned to a proper state.
Okay, thanks. I also saw that a harbor patrol boat is out of service. Do we still have one running, or?
Still have one running, and I don't know the severity of it, of how long it'll be out, but the harbor patrol seems to be fully operational still.
Okay. Yeah, it went out of service the Friday before Beach Life, and so I was a little concerned about that, but I think there was other coverage for it,
Yeah.
so it seems like we're okay. Let's see. I've actually had a couple liveaboards approach me recently and ask, if there's any news on the status, and I don't think there is. I think the way that the liveaboard situation ended a couple years ago was sort of a handshake agreement that the current liveaboards could continue to be grandfathered in and stay there. Am I right, or did anything finally happen
That's
more firmly with liveaboards?
That's a very complicated issue. Obviously, there's state housing laws and there's maritime laws. Maritime laws don't concede state housing laws, so, technically speaking, those kind of laws don't apply to the livable boards. I think you're right. I think there's an agreement between our slip operators to let them remain. There's kind of pros and cons to having them out there. They are our eyes and ears out there oftentimes, so I think people see that. But there's also a balance that you have to hit too, in regards to having enough recreational users out there. So where it left off was more of an agreement. But yeah.
Okay, that's what I had thought. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I hadn't, missed anything or nothing had changed there. I'm still in favor of them as, the only people doing the patrols and the security. And there's so many openings, they're not taking up recreational spots.
Sure.
And the last thing I'll say, not a referral to staff, but there was an article in the Easy Reader on the Manhattan Beach swimming pool at Pollywog Park. I'm looking at Leslie because we've talked so many times about swimming pools. They're trying to improve the swimming pool at Pollywog Park, and the option just to maintain it as is was $28 million. The second proposal was to create a modern new aquatic center, adding a 35-meter competition-style second pool along with the existing 25-yard pool, and that was $40 million. A third option emerged where they were considering going in with Bay Club and expanding the existing Bay Club facility onto city property next door to it. So, no comment there other than to say, wow, that's a lot of money. I hope we can do something, anything in Seaside Lagoon, with the money we're raising. And I wish there were more pools somewhere. Mm-hmm. So that's all I have. Thanks.
I have a question. Kind of following up on what Roger's been talking about with the different marinas. I'm wondering, I haven't found anything, so maybe there isn't anything, but are there any minimum safety requirements for the docks? Like throwable rings or ladders if someone falls in so that they can get themselves out of the water?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sure there's something in terms of safety for the docks. Roger, do you, or does anybody?
There used to be a flotation device on every fire extinguisher box. They've long gone. I'm not even sure they test the fire hoses anymore. I know that one of the marinas is just in such bad shape right now. It's just sad.
Yeah.
And, this thing about, and I have a real opposition to lessees and owners who let their property run down and then say, it's blighted, I need help. I think that's a real disservice to the public or to the lessees. I really have a hard time, and I think the city should step in and do something before it's too late.
Right.
I did find the standpipe and the fire suppression kinds
Right.
of rules. And I don't know, those don't look good either, but I don't
they
know
don't.
if those are inspected
They
or not.
used to be
Okay.
inspected all the time.
But the thing that's very obvious is the lack of the throwable ring, which
Right.
did used to be there and
There has never been ladders, because I know when we were liveaboards, we used to haul drunk people out of the water all the time. They weren't even.
One time.
They weren't even able to get to a swim step to get on a boat to get on a dock. So the throwables were always nice. I haven't seen them for a while. Ladders, I know King Harbor Yacht Club has them because we had some incidents and couldn't get people out. It doesn't look like it, but that dock is high off the water and you cannot pull yourself up. It's difficult. So I think safety inspections, I don't know if it's in the contracts with the leaseholders or not, but it would be really nice to have some safety equipment down there.
The contracts are written such that it's pretty general. It just says you shall abide by all the rules and regulations. It's one of those kind of catch-all provisions.
that's why I wondered if California had some rules and regulations and I gave a small shot at looking, but I didn't see anything other than the fire immediately.
Yeah.
Okay.
My discussion with the slip operators wasn't just about vacant slips and registration. It was about overall maintenance and degradation of quality, those kind of touchy items that I thought that they needed to improve upon. We'll see where it goes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Could I make a referral to staff that we ask Harbor Patrol and Fire Department if they inspect fire suppression systems on the docks? I mean, they look at the fire suppression system in every restaurant, I believe, and commercial buildings.
I think offhand that they do, but I will confirm for you. Okay, got it.
Thanks.
Any other referrals? No. Okay, could I have a motion for adjournment?
Anybody?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you.
I wouldn't be surprised if they don't have it because they want voters.